All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION this evening. China has once again stirred up a major controversy with its neighbors. Now, China has again released what it calls as its 2023 edition of its standard map, which once again claims the Indian territories of Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin as part of Chinese territory. And as expected, India has strongly reacted to this development. The Ministry of External Affairs has said in an official statement that New Delhi has launched a strong protest through diplomatic channels with Beijing on this matter. The statement also goes on to say that these kind of steps by China only complicate the resolution of the boundary question. Now, the current map was released during what is being referred to as the National Mapping Awareness Publicity Week in China. The map also shows Taiwan and the South China Sea as completely within the Chinese fold. The move can be seen as Beijing's response to New Delhi's decision to host a G20 meeting in Arunachal Pradesh earlier this year. And more interestingly, the timing of this move has raised a number of different questions. Now, just a few days ago, Chinese President Xi Jinping, remember, had met with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. The two leaders had a brief but a fruitful discussion, where it was said that the two nations will in fact work towards the resolution of the border issues. Now, to address Prime Minister Narendra Modi's concerns, Xi Jinping had agreed to direct officials to expedite de-escalation along the line of actual control. But China's latest move seems to indicate that it has no intention of de-escalating. The latest move also comes on the heels of the G20 summit in India, which is slated to be held next week. It remains unclear if the Chinese president will now attend the summit in person after having taken a provocative step. But this, remember, won't be the first time that China has made these kind of claims about what territory belongs to the land of the dragon. Now, China has been using this old tactic of cartographic expansion for quite some time now. Now, in 2012, China had shown Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin as a part of its territory in the maps of the country on their new e-passports. Then in 2014, China had released a new map, again showing the northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh as a part of Chinese territory. A year later, in 2015, the country greeted the Indian Prime Minister with a wrong map of India. The map had the territories of Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh missing in it. In 2019, the neighboring nation destroyed over 30,000 world maps that showed Arunachal Pradesh as part of Indian territory. In 2020, China once again released a digital map making similar territorial claims. And now, on the 28th of August, China has once again released its so-called standard map, in which it makes claims that simply cannot be justified. The situation at the Indo-China border is pretty tense due to China's persistent violation of norms. Now, both sides have increasingly militarized their border policies and have shown no indication of backing down, largely because of Chinese aggression. Beijing and New Delhi are hardening their positions on either side of the line of actual control. India is firm. It has stated that peace and tranquility in the border areas is essential, and this can only happen once territorial integrity is respected. New Delhi has also said that it is fully prepared and is committed to protecting India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, in the wake of Beijing's latest move to trigger diplomatic tensions with its neighbor, it leaves possible the promise of de-escalation hanging by a thread. Because what no one knows at this point of time is why is it that the Chinese are resorting to this type of cartographic expansion. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we're being joined by Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar. He's the former Indian diplomat. He's joining us from London. Ambassador, this is not a surprise for people who've been watching how the Chinese, of course, behave. This is yet another map that's been released by China, which claims the territories of Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh to be part of Chinese territory. India, of course, has rejected this. But what is behind this Chinese strategy of putting out maps of this nature every now and again?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your show, Mr. Saleh. And you are very right. It is not a surprise. China has been doing such activities. Of course, it is a very provocative action, whether it has taken place now or it has taken place in the past. I think what is particularly surprising is the timing of this move, because number one, it happens just less than 2 weeks before the G20 summit that is to take place in Delhi. And at all fora, different fora, and at different levels, China has been saying that they will work to make this India's G20 presidency a success. This is definitely not a move that is designed to foster greater confidence, greater camaraderie and cordiality between the two countries. The second aspect, Mr. Saleh, also is that just a few days ago, the meeting between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi took place in Johannesburg, and it was said that both the leaders agreed that they are going to work together to lessen tension at the line of actual control. Of course, this was the readout from the Indian text in terms of what had transpired. As far as the Chinese text is concerned, they did not mention anything about de-escalation or disengagement.
Right.
So, and there were some thoughts, there were some commentators and analysts who were mentioning that, this could lead to a possible lessening of tensions between the two sides. But this map coming at the stage that it does, I think it has completely destroyed any confidence that had that the two sides might have got that we'll be able to at least tone down on the line of actual control on the border issue and start looking at the G20 discussions, deliberations in a positive way. So I think the timing is very, very suspect, and it gives rise to the understanding that China is in no mood whatsoever to relent as far as the issue of the line of actual control is concerned.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, Ambassador, the fact that the line of actual control was something that was agreed upon just 30 years ago, sometime in the middle of the 1990s. And every time India and China negotiate, India tries to negotiate in good faith. We try to bring down the temperature. But what we look at from the Chinese side is that they just do not want to go back to where they were. They are not interested in going back to status quo ante. And every time India has agreed for some measures to bring down the temperature at the line of actual control, what we see is that the Chinese use that as an opportunity to try and get into a better position. How should India deal with this, sir?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things here, because there were very clear understanding between the two sides, the confidence building measures, the agreements that had been signed in 1993, 1996, that there would not be, neither of the sides would station troops or bring heavy armor or equipment onto the border areas. And China violated that in April 2020 when it brought these forces onto the line of actual control, and also the heavy armory equipment and its big aircraft. And it has really not been able to explain as to why it did that, why it went in violation of what had been agreed upon. I think what is becoming quite clear is possibly, number one, it feels that it is in a strong enough position to not really care about India's sensitivities. That I find a little difficult to comprehend, because I think the manner in which India has been growing and expanding, whether it is its global outreach or it is its economy, it's the 5th largest economy, going to become the 3rd largest economy in a few years' time, going to become a $5 trillion economy.
Right.
So China is facing problems domestically, both of an economic nature as also of a security nature.
Right.
So maybe the fact that it is pushing back against China, against India, is its own way of sending out a message that China is still in control. China still is has the command of things. Right. And by being so aggressive and assertive, it wants to send out a message both to India as also to outsiders that it is, its domestic problems are not of a serious nature, and it is very capable of dealing with them. I think the aspect that you also mentioned about Taiwan, of course, but also of the South China Sea, because South China Sea is an area, it's about 3.9 million square kilometers, and it is an area where the interests of many of the ASEAN countries, and of course countries like Japan, Australia, the United States, many of the other major trading countries, they also are concerned and interested. So I think it is really pushing back not only against India, but against many other countries of the global community.
I think you've summed it up really well. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Sajjan Har, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Goodbye.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.